And we're live. So, welcome to today's live stream where we actually have a topic coming out that's well thought of. So, as you might have heard from the previous live stream yesterday, JD was contacted by Jeffrey Phillips, which is, among other things, a vegan YouTube site with some experience in debate, or at least responding videos to debates. There is, I think, Carnivore Camaraderie, a very young gentleman, hasn't been really perhaps in the nutrition topic for very long. I think it's what I've been hearing is that person really doesn't know how to defend the carnivore side of the topic. Carnivore, I think this debate would revolve more around an omnivorous diet, whether the traditional omnivorous diet that humans basically have adopted for a very long time, probably at the dawn of the agricultural revolution, as many demographics transitioned from hunter and gatherer to creating more crops, agriculture crops. Of course, also always mingling that to a certain extent with animal food. So an omnivorous diet, which I think is quite reasonable. Also, just understanding, the effects of carbohydrates, how it can fill to certain levels, reservoirs, glycogen reservoirs in your liver, as well as your muscles. And muscles can vary too. People can hold a lot more muscle, allowing a higher glycogen storage capacity. And glycogen is basically just a spot to store glucose when it combines with water, and this allows the muscles to have access to quick, high octane energy when they're going to burst into actions using those muscles. So yes, I think a animal-based, a highly non-restricted animal-based omnivorous diet with the option to incorporate a very wide variety of vegetables, I think it is a very reasonable choice. I think that it should be on the low carbis end. I think that people that are adopting some form of carbohydrates, pasta, wheat, grains, whatever, if this is incorporated, you should understand the glucose load of it, not just how fast it spikes insulin, but the total amount of grams that have to be dealt with, and kind of understanding, okay, I was physically active. My previous meal had a certain amount of carbohydrates so that I could rapidly replenish my glycogen stores. Is it really necessary to have two more meals prior to becoming physically active, again, that are high in glucose? What is the purpose of the consumption of that glucose? Since glucose is really just a fuel, doesn't take process in anything else besides cellular respiration. Doesn't help build the lining of cells, doesn't help it is not incorporated in any component. It's not a building structure. So we should really be strategic, in my opinion, just understanding like, hey, where's this glucose going to go with this meal? Am I likely empty somewhat on my glycogen stores, having been previously active? Yes. Okay. I think that it would be beneficial, especially with people trying to be in sports. I think that when the carnivore community jumped onto the scene shortly after the season of the ketogenic diet, I think that they made one good point. Have they, as a community, in the past 3 years gone cult-like? I have no idea. I haven't really followed it in a long time. But initially what they were stating was they had really went through the science of what nutrients are available in animal foods, looking even, for a more nose to tail approach that would have been more in line with earlier ways of consuming the animal, really not wasting anything, right down to the bone marrow. But the organs obviously were highly prized. And once the organs, which I think, were actually prized more than the muscle meat, those cultures over time, I guess, realized that there was stuff in there that was essential and that optimized humans to thrive. So the carnivore community basically said, look, you can get everything that you require for your body to thrive, all the essential nutrients, solely through animal foods, especially with the adoption of organ meats. Then after they kind of pointed out, since animal food was being demonized and the plant food was being touted as, just nature's loving vitamin with no negative aspects to the actual plants, which was basically untrue. Plants have phytohormones. They have phytochemicals that I would call defense mechanisms, anti-nutrients, such as phytates, lectins. They also have hormone disruptors, things that can affect, and anti-nutrients that actually can prevent the absorption of some of the nutrients that you have consumed through plant foods, which is another reason why our ancestors, when they did incorporate plant foods, primarily for carbohydrate sources, they were aware, probably have, been around their environment and possibly eaten certain plant foods and got really sick. Any of us can go out and eat all the wonderful colored berries in our neighborhood, and we'll realize that we've probably, shut down our kidneys and liver and are going to need a emergency room visit, because there's many plants that are poisonous. Many medications are derived from plants. These are potent molecules that exist in some plants. Our ancestors understood how to deactivate certain of these defense mechanisms through fermentation, heating, boiling, crushing. All of these aspects were able to deactivate certain of the defense mechanisms so that they could apply it. I think the carbohydrates were some form of a benefit because they were able to still continue with the animal food that was, in my opinion, the real food, and they could accentuate that diet with higher carbohydrates, which could be good for a form of energy. I think once we moved from the hunter and gatherer aspect of our paradigm of eating food, we were able to drastically increase the population because of the amount of calories that were able to be produced. The population was able to grow. That kind of put the ecological natural cycle of humans that were incorporated within the prey and predator circular ecological cycle. They were able to kind of exit that and start exploding calories. But if we look also at the dawn of the agricultural revolution, plant agriculture itself did have many health detriments. The stature and the health markers actually decreased in people once they started relying heavily on plants. I think if you're adopting a omnivorous diet, that you should be avoiding, like the plague, all of these seed oils that have only been able to be produced since the early 20th century, where it was primarily Procter and Gamble that had access to cottonseed oil that was previously an industrial lubricant, and they decided, let's try and make money by further processing these industrial oils through pressure, as well as many industrial techniques, but also the application of solvents as a way of extracting these plant fats. The plant fats are only polyunsaturated omega-6 fatty acids. Polyunsaturated means that there's not a lot of hydrogen bonds, making that form of polyunsaturated fat more brittle and more at risk of becoming mutated, as well as rancid and producing oxidation. So even during the processing of these seed oils through an industrial mechanism, we see that even while it's on the shelf to a certain extent, there's oxidation that's occurring. The horrible reality is that they then take these brittle, industrialized, solvent-based seed oils and incorporate them in basically all of the middle section of your grocery store. So anything from Triscuits, crackers, sauce, wraps, right down to the brown bread, all have some form of seed oil, whether it's canola, soybean, what they call vegetable oil. People think that if they go to, or it's fancier seed oil, maybe like rapeseed oil, it's the same process that's occurring. It's a solvent-based, highly omega-6. We have essential fatty acids, and those essential fatty acids primarily occurred naturally when we were eating animal foods. They had much better ratios because the animals were also being grass-fed, the ruminant animals, and they were eating an appropriate diet that they were that was part of the natural ecological diet for those ruminant animals, which was primarily grasslands and not at all the current grain-fed paradigm that occurs, but not everywhere. If we would be truthful in reforming the agricultural industry, both the destructive aspects of monocropping and plant agriculture, as well as some of the destructive forms that are unnatural to the animal and an unnatural way of using the ruminant animals, that too must be reformed. But I think that a very reasonable restructuring of the agricultural paradigm of farming both plant as well as animal would be an incorporation where each farming institution has adopted both plant as well as ruminant animal farming, so that they could stay for a certain amount of time on the farmer's land, allowing the grasslands to grow. This would give animal input, meaning fertilizer use. This would give fertilizer use through natural animal input instead of what they're currently doing, which is the mining. So I think that a appropriate and very reasonable and realistic would be, again, a combination of possibly forestry to hold in the water within the soil. That would help to not have just monocrops that enter the soil, don't hold any water, extract a good amount of the animal input or the fertilizer, whether it's petroleum synthetic. It takes it out and it is sold on the market, so that there is no death of the organic matter to a great extent, to also give plant organic matter to help fertilize the soil. Tilling is not always necessary, and never really thought about it until I started researching that tilling is actually a horrible practice for the topsoil. The topsoil isn't just dirt; it's a complex microcosm of microbiota that actually help bring the soil alive. So we see, if we live in reality, that everything in this fallen world, in this current paradigm, requires death for life to continue, whether it's animals, prey and predator, whether it's humans that hunted certain animals. Certain animals before society, we were vulnerable by being eaten, as well as the requirement of both animal, human waste products such as urine, all of these things, and the death of the animal and plants that will require the natural organic input. So even the soil requires death of organic matter to be able to continue the cycle. So the idea that plants are life and you're not eating death, I personally don't agree with it, because the plants are literally thriving on the nutrients of death of both plant and animal agriculture. So I think that especially with climate change, that if the climate is truly going to become more and more unstable, this crisis to the point of possibly displacing large groups of people around the world, probably initially through the shoreline and coastline, if we're going to have hurricanes, droughts, all sorts of changes in where these things usually occur. Putting all our eggs in one basket with plant monocropping could put us at risk of having a global harvest that is severely depleted, reducing the supply for the demand and causing food scarcity and famine. It's also important to understand that a lot of these subsidized GMOs, such as the typical soy, corn, wheat, these subsidized things do not have nutrients that we obtain in ruminant animals, for example. So a ruminant animal will eat the grasslands, which is quite useless. We don't have the digestive tract to properly extract protein from these things. So by eating just corn and saying, if we would stop feeding the animals, let's say the crops, we would have more crops for us. However, ruminant animals especially will eat these crops that are devoid of certain nutrients that are essential for the animal, the grasslands, where there's no nutrients that can be harvested from our biology. And it actually amplifies through bacterial fermentation and literally creates these nutrients that didn't exist in the product that the cow is consuming. A dumbed down way of looking at that is that it's really the plant that is feeding the microbiota within the various chambers of a ruminant animal, producing things, but not limited to B12. We see that gorillas are more hindgut fermenters, and that's why the gorillas, for example, that eat a high amount of plant matter must re-ingest their poop a second time to further extract. And because of the hind gut aspect of, let's say, the gorilla, for example, the B12 is being produced by those microbiota being pooped out, and the gorilla will practice, I think it's called coprophagia, where they do a second round and they do receive their B12. I had a vegan that was telling me that, well, you know what, even animal food now is low in B12, but that is really not true, because what the vegan, I think it was Space Doll, was implying was that the animals as well are eating the cobalamin within the soil, and that's how it's getting introduced into the flesh of the animal, so that when humans eat it, they can receive B12, and that is not true. The cobalamin mining and stuff like that are strictly actually for supplementation and fortification of foods with B12. When it goes through the ruminant animals, it is being produced by the microbiota within there. So it is, in a way, creating B12. The only B12 that I think a plant can produce is, if I'm not mistaken, is certain kind of algae. And within those certain kinds of algae. I might be wrong, but that is also created by microbiota. I'm not sure if I'm wrong on that, if it's about B12 or if it's about omega-3 within the algae. So I might be off on that specific aspect. Hey, Jeffrey Phillips, what up? I just wanted to talk a little bit myself. I was planning on talking to JD about something. I know you guys wanted to hone in and specify, not to go through the wide discussions on every aspect of the difference between omnivorous diet and animal agriculture compared to plant agriculture. I think you're going to focus on just one aspect. So the plan of this live stream was as a way of kind of hyping up this Sunday, I hope, or whatever date has been decided. We were just going to focus on the nutritional aspects, since that, I believe, is not the aspect you guys would focus on, but it would get the word out. I put Zetetic Warrior, my good friend, up there because I believe from what JD told me, he will be the one moderating. I think I made a mistake. I'm just going to edit. I made a mistake with Zetetic Warrior, missing an R. Okay, I'll go edit that after. Jeff, you can come on for a bit until JD comes. I wouldn't want to start any kind of debate now. So I'm going to post a link. We can just formally get to know each other. Keep the good stuff for between you and JD. But I'd like to get to know you, keep things civil and cordial. So if you'd like to come on, Jeff, feel free to come on. Would love to get to know you. There you go. Jeff, if you'd like to come on. I'm just going to run and go get my mousey. I think it's a little bit better than trying to play with this stupid finger pad. So give me a second. Let me just try and play something. And I shall be returning. Jeff, do you mind if I maybe try and play something so people get to know you a little bit physically here, what you look like, some of your content? Jeffrey Phillips. Hey, maybe I misspelled. That's not your handle. I apologize. Just give me a second. I did snoop around, so you must be somewhere down in my history. Oh, here you go. I'm just gonna let this play. Press the link, Jeff, if you want to come on and chat a little bit. And I'm just gonna play this for the viewers so they kind of get to know you a little bit.
Our last debate on YouTube.
Give me a sec. It would help if I shared the screen. Again, I'll post another invite for Jeff. Here you go, buddy. Copy. Come on. Hopefully you'll be in the back studio when I get back. Share screen. All right, so guys, this is Jeffrey Phillips. He has a channel. Feel free to go check out that channel. And I believe he's part of, among other things, but I did notice that he must be getting acquainted or already acquainted with the Awaken community, Awake TV, Zetetic. I noticed when I was checking out, Jeff, you had a Freedom Grower. So, I noticed that OTW is the one that contacted JD. So this is a community that I'm getting to know, enjoying it very much. They've been very cordial, very, very open and inviting. So I will be back in a second. I'm going to shut up and actually do this. Share screen. Okay, I just saw you, Jeff. Just give me 1 second. I'm going to get the mouse and I'll let you in, okay? Here you go. This is Jeff. Won't be long, Jeff. I'm coming back in a second.
Which is very strange. Turn your people against you, because
here you go.
Against you.
There you go.
If you don't,
I'll be back, buddy.
At least show a glimmer that you're understanding what I'm saying when I'm telling you that you're dangerously giving people health advice. Like, I literally told you I was going to turn your people against you. And what happens? Within a week, one of your top 10 guys makes a video exposing you and says everything that I said in my video to you. He exposed himself. He exposed the whole carnivore diet movement because he went after you so hard because of how poor you do when you are face to face with anyone that disagrees with you.
Nothing to do with it. In fact, it actually makes this pretty unfortunate timing because I would have liked to respond, and I will respond.
Let's get out of here. Hey, Jeff, how are you? Is your voice on?
Oh, sorry about that.
Okay,
how's it going?
cool, man. Nice to meet you, buddy.
Yeah, you too.
Yeah, so
It's nice to see some
JD,
like normal.
go ahead. Sorry about that.
What's
Go
that?
ahead.
No, go ahead. Shoot.
Yeah, no. So yeah, JD and me are friends. He's on a lot of the live streams. So he sent me like a snap about. I think seems like maybe OTW News might have been like the intermediate guy that maybe brought it up. And I guess you guys are still. I guess you would like to debate JD on some aspects of veganism. I guess you guys might be wanting to kind of not go through every aspect and maybe one at a time go certain topics. Am I getting that wrong, or is that kind of you're still figuring
Well, it
out
all
the
started. I'm a regular panel member on a show called the Paul and Slave Show, and I guess
Okay.
Freedom Grower Dick.
I know
Dick's on that show a lot.
Okay.
What's that?
I know Rich, yeah.
Yeah, Dick's on that show, and yeah. And whenever we've gotten into it on the show a couple times, and the last time I was just like, all right, if you believe this stuff, then let's have a moderated debate. And Dick just kind of screamed at me a whole bunch and pointed his finger at me and said he'd never waste time debating me. And so Z came in and was like offered to moderate.
Okay.
And Dick just kind of I mean, we can watch the video if you want, it's up, but he didn't seem, you know, it doesn't seem like he's able to keep himself calm enough to do a debate.
Well, is it just that he you know he eats an omnivorous diet and he that's just something he doesn't focus on, really, that topic? Is that why maybe he's like, well, look, I haven't done much of the research, so I'm not going to go up, you know?
No, I mean, Paul, the guy who does the show, is a vegetarian, and it's often we speak about it often, and Dick, you know, respects Paul when Paul talks about it, but he doesn't respect me when I talk about it.
Okay.
And so I was like, all right, let's do this, because this is what I do. I debate, you know, carnivore dieters and keto dieters about, you know, the dishonesty that they're spreading. Huh?
Is it focused mostly like carnivore or keto? Because I know me being part of it like about 3-4 years ago when keto really came on, the carnivore kind of slid through after. I mean, maybe it existed prior, but it kind of like the keto thing happened, and then a lot of the keto started transitioning to the carnivore, which, you know, it could be debated. Are
not much
like
difference between
more extreme and stuff like that. But what about just like a omnivorous diet, you know, like focusing people that are just like, oh no, you know, I try and eat healthy side dishes of vegetables, but I don't see any problem, let's say, with incorporating you know, animal food and stuff like that.
Well, it all depends. Like Joey Schwartz, Carnivore Camaraderie, I debated him twice.
Okay.
And you know, he the second time we debated, when he realized finally like that I'm bringing something to the table, the second time we debated, he changed the premise to an omnivore diet versus veganism, because he knew he didn't have the ability to beat me in a debate full carnivore versus plant-based or vegan or anything like that. So he switched. Our second debate was on a show called The Crucible, which is a YouTube channel that holds moderated debates, which I contacted the guys today about this debate. So once Joey showed up to the Crucible debate, he changed the premise that we had spoke about the week before, and he changed it to a full omnivorous. And the second debate was called off basically 20 minutes into it because Joey kept breaking rules and getting argumentative with the moderator. He just wasn't prepared for a real debate.
So tell me a little bit more about this guy. So this guy is a pro carnivore component. Because I was just snooping around yesterday when JD started talking about this. I was like, oh, like who's Jeffrey Phillips?
Joey's the newest kid on the block in the carnivore scene. He's 19.
Has he been doing it a long time, or he's just
no? He just got his YouTube just got huge overnight.
Really?
He's only been on the carnivore diet 6 months. He's 19. Like, how much could the kid know? You know, he basically just regurgitates, you know, Dr. Baker, you know, like the carnivore doctor, you know, Liver King facts. You know, it's just like facts, a lot of conjecture, a lot of appeals to, you know, a lot of stuff. But anyway, so me and Dick got into it. Z showed up and offered his platform for or his platform for moderation. And then a day went by, and then Z came back and said that he had contacted someone about doing this debate, because that's specifically what me and Dick were arguing about. Was you know, there's a Ted Nugent video that's viral again from a few years ago of him on Joe Rogan saying that you know, his diet, that basically you kill the most animals if you're vegan. And that him with his bow and arrow, you know, and it's like it may this whole argument makes sense to him specifically, being a bow hunter, you know, but the whole you know, meat eating community has gathered around this viral video that just isn't factually correct for the majority of the people in this world or country. It's very
my thought, like, I think I don't know if you were listening just at the start before you popped on, that was kind of my idea, that I think, you know, what I would like to see as a restructuring of agriculture in whole, acknowledging that there are you know, the cows aren't eating what they're supposed to be eating. It's not their natural diet. There is ethical concerns on certain large corporations. Like, I think that everyone can agree with that. And I think that you know, having done the research, that even the current, like, plant agriculture is not ideal either. That you know, large plant industries are doing crap that's not good for the environment, and that if we could kind of restructure it, where a huge restructuring and a huge paradigm shift where farmers are actually incorporating animals, as well as a plant agriculture, maybe even some forestry, and being able to kind of mimic a little bit more how animals would have stayed in locations, peed, pooped, did their beneficial things, replenish the soil, and then rotate the crops there, and just kind of continue rotating, so that at least the animal input, fertilizer wise, would be kind of more natural. And by building the damn topsoil, even for the crop monocrops, hopefully the water would be held more in the ground and stuff like that. That's kind of my idea, is that I'd be nervous also if we would eliminate the majority of animal food, just because of the, let's say, climate change. What if we're going to have very unpredictable climate areas, and we lose a whole damn global crop because of some issue, and we really have, like, killed the animal industry? It's kind of putting you know, like all our eggs.
Yeah, I mean, we're getting into, like, personal beliefs then. You know, global warming is definitely a personal belief that wouldn't necessarily be a very good argument in a debate. What's that?
What are your thoughts, like on climate change?
Well,
Like,
I definitely agree with you that both industries are completely doing it wrong. And the fact that both industries are subsidized is a big issue too, because that takes the whole natural thing away. The word natural to me is very misused. I don't, you know, most of the time I have someone to explain something natural to me, I disagree with what they're saying, because it's it's like, natural is kind of everything's natural, you know, everything came from nature at one point. So it's kind of hard to, and we don't, you know, like your model for your model for this, like, a
hybrid,
I guess it's called the sustainability of the crop the topsoil, like your model of how, being 100%, like there's animal droppings in all of it, like in some scenarios that isn't necessarily as natural as it would be in other places. So it's always kind of, natural is not the greatest word, nor does it necessarily mean, like, it's not a very anyone could just hide behind, oh, it's natural, and think that they won the argument.
I think for sure, really, like words and definitions. I'm kind of, when I would refer to natural, it would kind of be putting a lot of faith in the natural ecological cycles that it seemed like the ruminant animals had with the land, and this aspect, which I don't think is completely lost to the point of saying that's only, theoretical. So when I would refer to natural, it would be like, you know what, probably, because it seems like every time we try and modify something or making, something resistant to something and starting to play with it, humans, I find they always kind of screw it up. So if we still have the wisdom of saying, well, this is the freaking thing that the animals are doing. We just took out the cows from the land. We just like started feeding them all sorts of crap here. Now we're doing plants, but the farming techniques are actually not sustainable in a way, because we don't want to use the animal input, but this is freaking mine. So it's like me, I like a middle approach where I'm like, no, I'm not being, because we can get culty in the vegan side, we can get culty in the carnivore.
Yeah. That's the problem, is that the two extremes.
Freaking Nazis, and then they're making extreme comments, and I think humans are predisposed to somewhat to doing it. Every movement kind of gets
every movement has extremists that make the movement look ridiculous, and I mean, that's kind of like why I'm going after most of these carnivore guys, because they're just like the clip you said about Joey, like Joey's lying to people, like Joey's telling people not to drink
because
water.
I didn't see it, I'd like
Joey
to
tells people Joey lives off of organ meat and organ meat, milk, and eggs.
Okay.
And he tells people they shouldn't drink water and they shouldn't work out. And, it's like stuff like that where I'm like, what are you talking about, child? And like, this dude's got 30,000 followers on YouTube, and he's got, and if you look in the comments section, he's got, everyone's, agreeing with him on everything he's saying, because he's been interviewed by Dr.
You'll get the like-minded people, and then people like, going with the people that are in the same zone. It's like two groups can watch the same debate, and then you'll go see each side how they destroyed the other side. It's like, okay, I mean, that's normal and stuff like that.
And I'm here to actually, I gotta, but Bart K is, you guys know Bart. I'm doing a debate with Bart in a couple weeks. Actually, after this one, I'm going to be scheduling it with him. I'm here to learn. I've been, what's that?
I really stopped, like, when I was into it, I was doing the typical. I started even Eric Bird to a certain extent, Sean Baker. I was watching a lot, Primal Edge Hell, because, you get the feedback loop and stuff like that. But I have no idea where they've gone off the deep end. It seems like I'm looking like Paul Saladino now, the carnivore certain group.
Well, he's being more reasonable. He's being more reasonable. He's getting attacked by his community because he's being reasonable.
Yeah. It's like denominations in a religion, where people like slight deviations. I think that should be acknowledged on the online. I mean, YouTube tends to have like spur activism, activist groups. And we criticize some of the activist YouTube channels, influencers, whatever. They're being funded, and I think at this point, I wouldn't be surprised on and stuff like that. Why not? I mean, they look at the statistics.
Of course. Well, if you look at meat consumption in the last 10 years, it's kind of gone down a little bit, right? Mm-hmm. And so the obvious response from the meat and dairy industry, the people that make money from that industry, is to pump money into propaganda get the meat eaters that are eating meat to eat more meat to make up for the people that have stopped eating meat. So it's like an obvious marketing thing that we're seeing, that that these carnivore dieters are getting supplied with money to keep their carnivore diet propaganda going, so to raise those numbers of meat consumption again.
I think that's just the reality of any movement. Will start. People will hang on and see where can I get some benefit from it. So I can completely understand.
So I was born. I was raised McDougall. Do you know Dr. McDougall?
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
Okay, I was raised McDougall,
like he's the one that talks about like being more of a starchivore. I know I've seen Gregor, I've seen McDougall, I've seen
Gregor's vegetarian, high carb but low sugar, and this is one thing I disagree with Gregor on, because I had hypoglycemic fits growing up when I was a kid because my mom would not let me eat any sugar whatsoever. And I think she was even, and so growing up, and having those fits in school, once I eventually learned more about health, I was like, oh, obviously that was, like carbs. I'm a high carb vegan for sure. I eat unlimited carbs, but I grew up McDougall. And then I went vegan when I was 16. I was part of a movement called the Vegan Straight Edge movement, which was a kind of how would I explain it? It was like a movement of, it was a bunch of kids that didn't do drugs, didn't smoke, didn't drink, didn't eat meat. They're vegan. It was like kind of a conscious movement that happened in the 90s in the United States. There was a certain type of music around it, like heavy metal kind of punk rock scene.
Yeah, like a culture around it.
Yeah, so I was already vegetarian. So I went vegan for several years, in my teens in the 90s, probably 7 years vegan. Yeah. And then I eventually moved to LA where I was in a band, and I kind of got caught up in the whole raging like a rock star thing in Hollywood. And I started eating, just basically went to the standard American diet of just eating whatever. And I wasn't, but the period of time I was vegan, I was a teenager and I didn't know how to feed myself. And I was literally living off of soy milk and soy protein and
tofu blocks and stuff.
Yeah. I would literally buy cases of soy milk and drink, vanilla soy milk all day. And,
it's considered processed in a way too. That's there's
absolutely. Yeah. And I had I was 19 and I had horrible hemorrhoids. I had periodontal disease. I had I was in very bad shape for a 19-year-old because I had been on this awful version of the vegan diet. Basically, I didn't know how. I was too young to know how to feed myself correctly. I thought I was purely, and I was doing it for the animals. I wasn't doing it for the health. But I still can.
How developed was the internet when you were 16? Like, are you 40-some like me?
Yeah, I'm 45.
Okay, I'm
45. Yeah.
So at 16, the internet was still somewhat developed. It's just like you could imagine.
This is pre-internet. Yeah, we didn't even have the internet yet. Basically,
you were searching. I'm sure a lot of this information wasn't there either.
Yeah, it wasn't. And we didn't know about omega-3s, and we didn't know about B12 back then. And there were things that there's just the health community didn't know yet. And that's where you get a lot of
2 years. I did veganism.
And that's where you get a lot of the negative ideas about veganism. Was the first wave of vegans who were very unhealthy because we didn't know about omega-3s, and we were eating a lot of seed oils and shit like that back then. Sure. And soy and
the vegan community in general do talk specifically about the seed oils and stuff like that it might be seeds and plants, but that it's too high in omega-6, that there's an industrialization process with it. Because I've seen even studies, there's not a lot of studies that will isolate the plant fats compared to animal fats. So it's like I do, initially I was fighting and stuff like that about one of my vegan coworkers was saying it causes insulin resistance. And I was like, what the hell, and then I'm like, no,
Well,
I
high
can
fat.
see plant fats. I can see high consumption of omega-6, these polyunsaturated, which do become components of cell structure, all sorts of structure. And to have that high omega-6 that's pro-inflammatory, I can imagine the cell having trouble getting the sugar across because the cell has this omega-6.
Yeah, this happens with any high fat scenario, any high fat environment. Your insulin receptors get completely blocked and you can't naturally absorb insulin. That's where you get, diabetes and shit like that. And there's also like lipemia, where the fat blocks, the oxygen receptors going to the brain and stuff like that. So whenever you have an insanely fat diet, you get that scenario, whether it's seed oils or animal fats or anything like that.
See, that's probably where the difference would end up coming. Like I think most people unanimously, I think on all sides would acknowledge the seed oil thing, and then we differ by saying no, we don't agree. Let's say with the consumption of animal fat being bad, and then we'll usually use the direction of saying, well, our myelin sheath, that covering over the nervous system is cholesterol and fat. Our sex hormones are cholesterol and fat, and et cetera. The fact that it gets broken down, into fatty acids, whether it's saturated or not, the benefits of getting, the fat soluble vitamins and stuff like that. I would find a vegan, debate against, non-vegan, like, because I've seen them and they just become like circular. You guys will have the evidence. We're going to have the evidence, especially studies, like you said. Some are funded by our side, some are funded by your side. There is scientific bias with these publications. So I especially, let's say with Vegan Gains, it's not an interesting debate because it just spins around with, here's my study, I'm refuting your study's quality. Here's my study. I would like, as a viewer, let's say watching, is just let's get to know each other instead of calling each other insane, saying, what's your perspective? Like, why have you come to, let's say, the conclusion of this? Then allow the
that's what I was saying earlier. I'm here to have an actual conversation. Like watching my videos with Joey aren't really a good representation of how I am in a debate, because Joey's very hostile.
Well, that's it. Like the vibe changes, obviously. Obviously, like when I try and incorporate knowing that I'm possibly in a group that's completely, on a different page than me. I like to say, like, let's say for Christianity and stuff like that. I'll carefully say from a Christian perspective, because I just want to say, look, this is my perspective. This is why I come to certain conclusions instead of, claiming absolutes and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And just subtle differences in the wording can completely change the vibe. I think it's more like understanding each other, saying, well, it's not so clear.
It's not so black and white.
It's like, no, we're as flawed as perhaps the other side thinks it is. It's like, oh, okay, well, if these guys are coming with concerns that possibly they believe that the vegans are not getting all the nutrients that are required to thrive. They have, our side has concerns or are very, skeptical of certain aspects, and we have concerns, let's say, for certain nutrients. So at least we can leave the table saying, okay, well, these guys don't just not give a crap about the animals, and they're just like, sometimes we're alpha males and we just want to kill animals, coming from an understanding, well, they're coming to the conclusion they have concerns that they don't think that the vegan diet can fulfill certain nutrients, and that's where they're coming from. And the science hopefully will show it. And then obviously you guys are like, no, there is science that says that you receive all nutrients. I think that the viewer at the end can say like, okay, that's a good point from the vegan side, that, and we all leave there just more of a understanding of each other's views, Okay,
Yeah.
I don't agree. I don't think that statistic's accurate, but if it is, I can see how you come to this conclusion. That would be a
Yeah.
great thing.
Yeah.
I tried to incorporate myself because I knew. Do you know OTW, Patrick from OTW?
I
A little bit.
don't, but I've seen him around.
Yeah, because he's the one actually that contacted JD.
Yeah, I
Uh,
saw that.
so I know that there's like the Truther or Awaken community, Awake TV. I think there's Pineal Power. There's Christos something. That seem to be a close
Yeah, it's
knit.
all the same guys from the Paul show.
And I've tried to say, well, I'd like to network with these guys, and I'd like to be humble enough to say, I know these guys, don't agree with typical Christianity. I like to try and maybe talk about things because it's not always about religion in those panels. And I'm like, yeah, I'll open up when I think that I can say something that's not necessarily always debating our views and stuff like that. But I don't feel I got, unfortunately, the same reciprocal intentions. It kind of just began like, your
Panels are hard to deal with.
and I was like, okay, so I kind of gave up on that. Like Satanic Warrior called my wife a whore and 5 times.
No, Z calls my girlfriend a Mexican whore every single day.
Yeah, and like
but I don't. But we don't
like
see.
There was an over speaking, and that is something I hope won't happen. I hope that it whatever format and the moderation will really be like, I literally like mute the other guy's speaker if it has to, give each one their ability to present, because I've seen the vegan
most vegans and most people in general are not good debaters. So most vegans, I think, do a terrible job at representing the diet and using their arguments. They appeal too much to emotion. And most people in general just don't know the rules of debate and how to actually get through something without getting heated or it's like that was the whole thing. Like with Dick, was like he was literally screaming at me, when I challenged him to a debate and calling me a coward. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, I want to go someplace where it's not 8 dudes on a panel yelling at each other, like.
Yeah, I know, I don't like that.
That's where that's where science happens, not when people are arguing and using ad hominem. But back to, so I was when I was doing the whole rock star thing, I just completely ate like crap.
Yeah.
And then I left that, and I always had vegan guilt during that time, because I knew I wasn't being healthy. Well, it was just health guilt and vegan guilt. I knew I wasn't being healthy, and I wasn't, standing on my ideals anymore. So eventually, I left the music scene, and I got into politics a lot, and I started YouTubing a lot, and I was a co-host on a show with an activist that was pretty big named Adam Kokesh. Okay. And Adam was very early on to the keto stuff. And so I did the standard American diet for probably 7-8 years, and was just in awful health, completely, either too chubby or too skinny, up and down, just kind of like fluctuating constantly and not being very healthy. And so I left the standard American diet and started doing keto, and I did keto for 2 years. And I got really muscular. I thought I was, a lot healthier, definitely than I was just eating whatever on the standard American diet. But I did keto for 2 years, and did it correctly. And then eventually went back vegan again. So I'm not arguing my debates. I'm not a new vegan. I didn't find veganism with the last vegan movie that was put out on Netflix. Like, I've been a part of this, and I've done the standard American diet, and I've done the keto diet and the fasting and all this stuff. And I went back to being vegan, which I think is a very unique thing. Well, you're open-minded. 20 years total, 20 years of being vegan under my belt, while also doing keto and the standard American diet and the unhealthy vegan diet. Like, I've done basically all of them.
Yeah,
and
you can eat Oreo cookies and
all day long.
Pizza, that's for sure. No.
Yeah.
I completely understand. Yeah, like I tried the vegan 2 years. I didn't quit. And I don't think I really went for the animals. I don't know. I think I
Yeah,
wanted
that's
to
kind
try
of
it.
the thing with the vegan diet. It's like, it's almost, in order to do it correctly, you kind of have to be doing it for both, you know? Like, you kind of have to do it for the animals, to
Yes.
find the inspiration to correctly do it with yourself.
Yeah.
A
Me,
lot of
it
people that
wasn't that. Me, it
use
was
a
just kind of
plant-based
trying it out.
diet.
For
Yeah,
me, it was like really just trying. So I guess, look, we can call it plant-based. It's true because I do know even vegans are like, it might be healthy as a side note, but that veganism isn't a diet. It's like you said, it's a
yeah,
worldview.
it's a lifestyle. We
Yeah,
don't
so probably
wear
plant-based.
leather, wool, you know, like,
Yeah,
it's a lot deeper than just what we eat.
yeah. What benefited me was, unfortunately, I have to take a medication that is known to cause metabolic disturbance and weight gain.
Yeah.
I never had any damn problem with weight control. Then I need this medication. I'm on anticonvulsants, and there's one of them that and they work very well. I used to always start going down because it just created weight gain, created these sugar cravings when it would hit. So I started putting on a lot of weight. I suffered from cravings and stuff like that, and I really was not doing well. You know, I felt depressed and stuff like that. And I fell on the
Wait,
ketogenic
craving,
diet.
sugar cravings?
Yeah,
You
like
said
it's
sugar
for
cravings?
me, it's my appetite increases dramatically when I'm incorporating carbs. It's probably you know, I actually think there are possibly people that just tolerate different amounts of carbs. I know there's some people it's like, man, carb it
Were you
up.
exercising a lot during this time?
Not at, let's say, the moment when I started doing keto. Probably not much
Yeah.
exercise, but not much even with keto. But like for me, what happened was it really helped as a more of a had an appetite suppressant effect. I did feel better. There are some studies that talk about cognition with ketones and even as mood stabilizer. So there is some benefits cognitively. And I felt kind of that, and I was able to lose the weight. I was very strict on the keto initially because I was scared to rebound, do the typical like any diet will work,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
here. So I stayed very straight. Over the last year, I started to be very inconsistent. About 25 pounds skipped up. Went back on it for a month. Did a video six
Wow.
months. Lost 13 pounds, and then after slacked off again and creeped up the weight, and now I'm back 1 month and I'm down 10 pounds. But it for me, it's almost like it's the only thing for me that has helped me maintain my weight and helped me maintain the damn medication. So for me, it's had, in my opinion, some health benefits. But I don't care. It's not some magical nirvana state to be in ketosis. I would say
Yeah,
it's
well,
ketogenically, but I'm popping myself out of ketosis. I like berries. I do eat plants. It's not like a cult like no plant must ever touch my lips.
yeah,
Just I understand the glycogen reservoir, and
yeah.
I think that you know, if you're on any kind of diet, as long as you're keeping in within the glycogen reservoir, you're probably not going to spill out if you're eating carbs into that. It's like you're more active, like you say, yeah, more carbs, you know. But I find a lot of people in our population extremely sedentary, but they're eating a lot, like 60% carbs, and I'm like, that just doesn't make sense.
See,
Like,
you know, yeah. See,
yeah,
most people don't
what
know
do you
that.
think
Most
about
people
that?
think, yeah, they're like, oh, just carbs, that's it, make me fat. And you know, they don't. I'm an endurance cyclist. Like, I
Nice.
race, I compete at 45. You know, we'll go do races that are 135 miles with 15,000 feet of elevation, you know, with the spandex and all that stuff. So when you're an endurance athlete, you experiment a lot, you know, and you notice very much the next day if you do something wrong. And I live off of table sugar,
Okay.
vegetables, fruit, rice, bread. cereal, and that's basically it. And I'm able to, and in my first year on this, I'm on like an actual sports protocol. And my first year on this protocol, I went from being basically sedentary to finishing, some of the hardest races that we have in the United States within a year, because of the high carb diet. And a lot of people, are sedentary, like you say, and they don't understand that, like, you have glycogen stores, and they don't understand that you have glycogen receptors on your tongue, and because carbs are the, easiest absorbable food, and the easiest.
Amylase, right?
What's that?
One of the enzymes in your mouth is amylase.
Yeah.
So if you have carrots in your mouth, you can actually, if you hold it, it'll have like a sweet taste. Especially if you're carb restricting, let's say keto, and you finally do have certain, like, just vegetables and stuff like that. Your palate's been so desensitized from sweet things that even those damn things taste sweet. This would be, let's say, the concern. I think that for me, it's a little bit more outspoken. Like, I'm concentrating a little bit on veganism. Like, my worry, my vegan phobia, or something, call it what you want, is that I'm fearing that the World Economic Forum, a lot of the globalists that seem to want to be, the big grown-ups deciding for everybody, like, I'm seeing a lot of stuff like the end of meat, and in the future there's going to be no meat. And what I want is choice. There's been vegans, especially since the 60s, no issues with vegans. They want to do that, do it.
Where are you seeing the no meat thing?
I can pop it up, especially the
I only see people saying that's happening, and I haven't really seen that. And I don't really understand where that's coming from, because the meat and dairy industry is a quadrillion-dollar industry that a lot of people make profit from, and it really doesn't make sense in my head.
Well, I might hear people out of line. I might be speaking out of my butt. What I think I've heard is the meat packing industry. Let's like Cargill, Tyson, all of this. I think that they believe that it's more lucrative to start investing more in the plant proteins. They want to make money, like the meat industry kind of thing, don't want to lose out on the protein aspect. And there is some, and like I said, I'm not stating this as a truth, but there is some aspect that because JD is a farmer, so I'm getting it from his perspective, is, let's say the farmer wants to raise the livestock. When they come to the middleman, that's going to be, the one that sells it to the grocery stores, they're seriously limiting the amount they're giving the farmers. So the farmers are scratching their head going, well, it's hardly even worth for me to bring this to market, because you're freaking giving me pretty much like no profit. And then then they go and they sell in the grocery stores, saying that there's a supply chain issue, and they up it for the consumers. That would be something maybe JD can talk about. This is
something where you get into, like, there's a lot of carnivore propaganda out there, and we don't know if these things are actually happening, but I know they're being used against me in arguments and in debates, but I don't know if this is actually happening. Our government subsidizes the meat and dairy industry on a insanely high level, because raising animals for meat is so not profitable. Like, I have two kids, and when my daughter was born, I got a goat, because to subsidize for breastfeeding, postpartum breastfeedings can be kind of hard. And so instead of using soy-based formula, I made my own soy formula by getting a couple goats, and I had chickens, and I learned firsthand how expensive it was to simply keep that goat healthy, especially eating like an organic, feed and all that stuff. So I understand on a small level how expensive it is, how much water, how much feed, how much medical attention, how much time, how much land, how much labor you have to put into this animal.
Understood. Fair enough. Again, if we look at statistics and stuff, actually, I don't want to get to it because that would, I think that might be the
I don't want to get into
area
what
that you guys are going to concentrate.
We don't know what the premise yet is
with
for our
JD.
debate.
Yeah, and he's the farmer, so he would be in like more. I'm looking at somebody.
And again, he's a farmer with an opinion. He's a farmer with an opinion that is that backs his industry. So where more people would think that he has the greatest information, I would think that he would be the most biased against. It was like what I was explaining to Carnivore Camaraderie. Joey, he named his channel Carnivore Camaraderie. Therefore, he can't be scientific anymore because he's the carnivore guy. He can't change his mind without losing his channel. So it's like we kind of have like a heavy bias coming in, and that's where this kind of nuance of really gets down to things. And that's why, like you're saying, these other debates, everyone's arguing and talking in circles. That's not what's going to happen here. Like, I don't waste my time on that kind of stuff. I did it for
JD. Let's say JD is extremely outspoken about the grain-fed beef industry.
I actually had an argument with JD maybe a year and a half ago. Someone tagged him on something I had posted on Facebook, and he came in, and we went back and forth a little bit. And I went to his page because I remember looking at his YouTube. I looked at his YouTube the other night, and I was like, "Oh, this is that dude." Like, I've literally had a conversation because he was very knowledgeable. Like, he did have some points that I hadn't heard yet. And I was like, whoa, this guy actually knows what he's talking about, it seems like. And that's why, like, now I'm going after the Bart K's, because I want, you've heard my experience, with veganism and McDougall and carnivore and or keto and everything. So, like, I want him to sell me on it. Like, with Bart, I'm not even debating Bart. I want to be like, dude, explain to me why you're so much healthier than I am, and sell your diet to me, and I'm going to be open-minded right now because I've done most of these diets and I'm still falling back to veganism because it makes political sense in my mind. The health reasons are there, and the for the animals reasons are there. So I don't know how Bart K, a sedentary man, is going to be able to convince me, someone who's beating people half his age in races, that his diet is so much better than mine. And that's kind of where I'm coming. That's where I'm at right now is, all right, sell me on this, like, explain, tell me your life, how your life changed, or how your life is better than mine because of this diet, and why, and all the details around it. I don't use ad hominem, even like when Dick was screaming at me, this whole time, me and Dick were arguing several times over this, like I called him a pussy once after he said he wouldn't debate me, and that's the only time I ever called him a name, and he called me a fucking moron like 65 times on the show, so it's like I'm not
that's kind of like buddy hazing,
What's that?
Just give me 1 second. I want to try, but I'm having trouble. Like, once in a while, this platform doesn't allow me to share. It's just like it says it can't connect and stuff like that.
Yeah, StreamYard's kind of a pain.
Yeah, it's especially the World Economic Forum that is. You see, it's not allowing me to screen share. That really sucks. I just wanted to show you that there is a lot of talk, and media is picking it up, and especially Bill Gates. Is heavily invested.
Bill Gates doesn't have any power over us, though. He's just an opinionated guy. Bill Gates also owns cattle farms too. So You
Well,
know,
he's
it's like
definitely buying, right? He's one of the larger landowners, so he's up to something, the guy.
he's not
And
one of the
there,
larger
there is
landowners.
an attack on plant agriculture too, at least in Canada. They're
Bill
really
Gates
putting a
owns
limit.
only about
Right.
150,000 acres out of the 900 million acres of farming land in the United States. He's not a
Yeah.
big landowner. He
Well,
doesn't
I
have a
think
lot of power,
I have a
and
feeling that he's going.
his products he's
I'll
selling,
let
he's
you
just
finish.
trying
Go
to
ahead.
make money with.
It's something to look at. I'm going to keep my
Yeah,
eye
it's
on it.
definitely something to look at, but I don't think
My
it's
suspicion is.
as
Okay, go
relevant
ahead.
evidence in the conversation as anything, because any guy could. I literally have a debate with a guy about this subject. Any dude can become a billionaire and say a bunch of stuff, but it doesn't mean that it's necessarily being forced on the public. You know, Bill Gates isn't in the government. He definitely
No,
can
but
have
you can
opinions about
imagine
things, but
this non-graduated, self-proclaimed virologist and vaccine expert with no biochemical aspect.
yeah.
What I'm saying is, and I'm not claiming an absolute, it's to wait and see, is that Bill Gates is very into creating basically alternatives. So he's putting a lot of his interest in the lab-grown ones, the cell-cultured ones, as well as, let's improve the technology.
GMOs. He's a GMO guy.
Yeah, that's it. And I see that at least, and I see this everywhere, but it's not being given a platform. They're also going after the plant agriculture by limiting the fertilizer use. Check into that again. I looked in very superficially.
Who's
It's not
they,
just
though?
animal.
Who's they?
Again, World Economic Forum. I know you say that they're just a bunch of rich guys that are talking, but they have a tremendous influence. If you go look at the Canadian Parliament and Justin Trudeau, he is following all of their objectives. I think that they want to create, this great reset, and it doesn't seem like it's a conspiracy. And they want stakeholders, and I think that all of this pressure that they're doing on smaller companies and stuff like that to deviate it through larger corporations. I think that once these large corporations, they always manage to screw it up. If they're going to make processed plant material as an alternative, I'm sure that these things will be just as unhealthy process-wise as any other processed. But that's at least my concern. I guess it's wait and see.
Yeah, I just like a lot of people come at me with those arguments, and they have nothing to do with like the fact that Bill Gates started Impossible Burger doesn't mean anything to me, whatsoever, in any way, what form. And it really isn't in a debate. It doesn't mean anything either. It's an appeal to the crowd or appeal to authority. It's not an actual argument. And it is a lot of conspiracy theory, which may or may not come true. But I don't see like this whole you'll eat the bugs thing, it doesn't make any sense to me, because why would the government be subsidizing the meat and dairy industry as much as it is? If it wanted us to all go vegan, they'd just cut subsidies and that would be it. And then we'd be living a natural scenario where you wouldn't be able to afford your meat anymore, because that would be the natural price of the meat, not the subsidized price of the meat. Which, if we were all eating to nature, we would not be eating meat very often at all, because it's just not economically insane for the government.
I don't see that personally. If the paradigm changed where the cow is actually eating what it's supposed to be, and that's not something that we need to produce, it's something that the earth would naturally grow, as well as the rainwater when they're taking in.
But that's not how things are.
One moment.
They're not even close to being like that. Grass-fed, like 8% of the world's beef.
So that's what I'm saying.
So and it's that way for a reason. It's not that way for economic. It's economically crazy to have grass-fed, because it costs it. Like, okay, I get the argument. Okay, all the cows should just be grazing,
sure.
but commercial farming exists because that's the only option economically. If it was economical to have all the cow grazing on grass, they'd be doing it, but it's not.
I don't
And
agree with that.
that's uneconomical, having the government subsidize it the insane amount that it does. You would
Let me
have
know
to
though. Let me
basically,
know when I can say something, because I
yeah,
do have
you'd have to there'd be
some
cows
thoughts
in
on that.
every person, they just there isn't quite enough grasslands to do what you guys wish you could do, by
I
having all these cows
okay.
be grass fed and just be like happy
Can
cows
I
in
say something?
California.
Yeah, is it okay if I just say, because
Yeah,
I'd
go
like to
ahead.
respond to a couple of things. I had seen a study looking at the limited amount of land that we actually have. So man, I'm gonna after plug this damn thing in, it's gonna die on us. There are areas on Earth where plant agriculture just cannot really be used readily. Those areas also would be able to be used for animal. What I'm saying is, of course, a massive paradigm change. If we're going to be trying to feed these cows unnatural processes, and yes, that paradigm, that form of animal agriculture, let's just say, is flawed, and it has been subsidized. They've created that paradigm. If we return to grass fed, and like I said, this is an incorporation, it's a massive change, but I don't see the problem financially when we start replenishing the grasslands, replenishing the soil with animal input, and also incorporating plant agriculture with it. The cows would be eating, while replenishing those areas, grasslands. There would be no financial cost for what they're eating. And when they talk about the amount of water that is required to produce X amount of beef, they are adding water that is not, they're not taking into account the rainwater, especially if you're doing it a more, I won't call natural, I know you don't like natural, but rainwater, okay, falls, the cows, so you're going to end up having animals eating useless stuff that we cannot provide. They are able, through their ruminant anatomy, to amplify the nutrients, because obviously through the bacterial fermentation, they're actually creating nutrients and fat soluble vitamins that we then eat. And that is cost effective. The problem is they took that out, and it's just as horribly set up, the plant agriculture. It's just as destructive. I think the whole thing, if we're honest, both aspects, plant as well as animal agriculture, need to be completely redone. It's very destructive, I think, on both levels. But I
Yeah,
think that
they're
there's
kind of incomparable levels, though. I
it's
don't think they're
because
comparable levels in the
we're
least
not
bit.
demanding the removal of choice. Like I said, veganism really was never a concern, because people wanted that choice and it was an option. What I'm saying is veganism is being pushed to the point where it wants to remove the choice of humans and to demonize it, I think, unfairly on every single level. And I don't think that that's necessarily true. Too bad I can't share. But if you look at you look into the World Economic Forum, Bill Gates,
Yeah,
um,
yeah. Trust me,
they
I've
definitely
heard
have
all of
a vegan
it.
agenda.
I've heard all of it for decades.
Well, no, but it's
You
because you were
know.
asking that they don't talk about it, especially these annoying guys. They're really going heavy on talking about ending meat. Um, when I've seen the EPA statistics on the emissions created by all of agriculture, it seems to hover around 9%. Obviously, you have the major culprits like energy, transport, and industry. And I'm not saying they're not trying to reform that.
Am I here? I'm not hearing you at all. If you can hear me. Oh,
Now,
there we go.
like
There
I
we go.
said, the battery was about to die. I was like, it's okay. It could be your show for a while if I can't get on. But yeah, what was I saying? Oh yeah, this was like like I said, I don't want to concentrate on what you and JD are going to concentrate. Why not let a farmer talk about the farming aspect? But here's an example, and I'm wondering, like, do you think this is legitimate concern, or it's full of poop, or whatever? Let me just throw up this specifically, the beta carotene one was just one I wanted to pick your mind about. I had them all popped up. Maybe it's a start. Sorry about this, about the wait, man. Come on. Yeah, it was this study. So I was saying to myself, because I've used it many times in the videos. So let's say we adopt out of necessity, out of morality, ethics, a worldwide, like we don't need to eat animals anymore. My concern is that, let's say I tell my colleague, look, I convince them to become vegan. Okay, so they're going to be consuming beta carotene, which is a precursor for vitamin A in a retinol form that you can get in animal food. So the vitamin A is different. So this, let's say I use this as an argument over here, that the absorption of beta carotene from plant sources ranges from 5 to 65% in humans. Vitamin A equivalency ratios in beta carotene to vitamin A from plant sources range from 3.8 to 1. But I just wanted to focus on this. So I'm like using my imagination and saying, what if somebody's just like, whether just give, let me finish, whether it's like genetic or maybe their gut health, they start doing the vegan diet and long term over the years, what if they're like a super crappy converter of vitamin A? They don't know about it, and the vegan community is focusing perhaps on the B12. But if that's an accurate statistic, okay, then I'd be like, crap, like people might not realize that they're just poor converters. Imagine putting this on a massive scale. I would be worried that some of the population just cannot convert it well. I mean, we know that there's anemia even in meat eaters. I mean, especially, some women, even, they're just not.
Yeah, that was what I was about to say. These are all meat eater problems also.
Imagine
and they're supplement problems.
But let's say you're getting a supplement, you're not gonna get a retinol.
I'm more worried. You guys are worried about vegans being deficient in a couple of vitamins. I'm worried about like coronary heart disease. The problems that come from this decadent diet. There's far worse issues than a couple deficiencies. Don't you think?
The problem is that, especially, I mean, as you know, there's different hierarchies of studies. A lot of those claims, they are done through epidemiological studies, and they're very often they're proving, as you know, associations. They can also use words such as increased race and link. And the difficulty with the epidemiological studies is that it proves association. Now, within anybody that's a vegan, okay, let's say, I don't think that it's accurate, but there's a large group of vegans that think it's healthy. They're more health conscious, less likely to smoke, and even though there are like you said, the horrible vegan diet.
That's what happens when they do studies with vegans. It complicates things because vegans tend to be healthier and live healthier lifestyles. They don't smoke, stuff like that.
So we have the meat eater that is, the guy eating meat, sure, but eating a whole, like we have all of these guys attached to these food questionnaires, these epidemiological studies. I find that the scientists, those things should be used by the scientist, because before you're going to put a large amount of money into like a randomized control study or something way more expensive, it's good that has a purpose because it finds an association. So you're like, you know what, there's an association here. Why don't we do a more, you know, that's like the first step, but it's often fed to the population. Oh, here's science. Most people don't even know how to read the side of a box. And for them, increased risk, increase or links or associations, I know it causes, and it's not necessarily true. One thing that has profoundly influenced me on being more confident with eating animal food is Weston A. Price, that book, Nutrition and Physical Degeneration. I think it's a really good argument because this was only in the early 20th centuries, and there was a lot of cultures that still had not been ruined by modernity. And what Weston A. Price, he wasn't trying to figure out what was making people sick. He went to these cultures, they were eating their indigenous diets. They all had a certain amount of animal food, and as well as some plants. It was very limited. They didn't have a wide variety. Sometimes they only had 3 or 4, sometimes 2 staple foods. These people had extremely healthy health markers, and they were eating meat. So then my question is like, well, why the hell was the meat not killing them back then, and now it's killing them now? And if somebody comes out with an epidemiological study, it's just not a good argument. It's so easily shot down. Because really it should not be used. I see vegan gains using those excessively, and then it just revolves into the most boring freaking debate, as if we're all sitting like scientists critiquing scientific research. I hope that doesn't get.
It's easy to read studies. It's not as hard as you may think. And then if you know the hierarchy of evidence within there, Weston Price, I don't even think falls into the category of being science. Anything he, for A, in the early 20th century, we didn't really know much about health. B, how long did he spend with all these people?
Well, have you read the book though? Because it would be interesting. It's a book
from people, but I don't. Where's all the other evidence that's modern that's saying that this is real? Like you're taking one guy's opinion, his scientific opinion.
I'm not taking one guy's opinion. I'm just saying if you read the book, if you didn't.
You just said if meat wasn't killing people, then that's an opinion you got from Weston A. Price, who is laughed at by most of the scientific community.
So that's where I would channel and say, well, where do you
like people using the Inuits all the time as an argument? The Inuits didn't live past 40, and recently there was a study on a bunch of Inuit mummies, and they all had atherosclerosis. So it's like they're dying at 40, and they're dying of meat-eating diseases. So why do all the carnivore dieters use these people as examples of people who lived off only meat, when clearly they were living off meat to a detriment to
saying meat. It's not really saying that meat. I mean, I hear this in the vegan community. We have
a lot of nuance to this stuff.
Yes, it's true. But those things should be entered. Like for example, maybe read the book too, because it's not a vegan book and it's not a carnivore book. I think that
the Weston Price book.
Yeah,
I've looked through plenty of it.
Okay, so
I definitely have looked through plenty of it.
I think that humans have always been omnivorous to a large degree. I think that we died very early from as you said, it's nuanced from medical, that you could get an abscess in your tooth, and before you know it, you're septic and you're a dead man. There was a lot of reason why all of the population were not living necessarily for long periods of time. But I mean, I think, like you said,
the people we have now that live the most amount of time live off of a basically plant-based diet.
Say that again?
I know the blue zones and all that, but like the blue zone people are all eating mostly vegetables, mostly a plant-based diet with a small amount of meat.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so those aren't vegan.
And that's really only a study that it's not it doesn't necessarily say anything, but humans can live while eating a certain amount of meat. I think we're omnivorous. I think we were made to eat meat in emergency situations, not every day, all day.
I think that back then, especially in hunter and gatherers, it was always a survival question. They had to get the next.
Yeah, but we're not living in those times anymore, and that's kind of my biggest argument. Is we don't need. We're smart enough.
I think that's where we differ, because see, I'm of the worldview that
you don't think we're smart enough.
No, I think that I'm of the view that we were actually more in touch with nature, and we were doing things better before. And I think that we're going actually the wrong way. So where, from one perspective, it's progress. I think that I put a lot of faith in how it was initially. And
destroying nature is progress to you?
Pardon?
Destroying nature is progress to you?
I see that
you said we were doing it better back then when we were killing animals, in the forest and stuff like that.
To be fair, in my opinion, I think that plant agriculture with its current practices is destroying just as much the environment. Again, I always go back to, well, what could be a possible solution? Again, it would be to completely eliminate this process where we're feeding the cows subsidized grains, which is not biologically what they're supposed to eat. They should be out in the field mimicking what they were doing, where all the bisons were here and the soil was there. Also incorporating better farming practices. I think it's completely criminal that the farmers are raising grains where they cannot collect their own seeds to produce the next harvest, where you have these freaking...
Well, yeah, I mean, then here we're going off on like a Monsanto argument again, and it's not really a vegan argument.
Pardon? Well, it's not an argument. It's just
it's not really an argument for. It's not a vegan carnist argument to talk about Monsanto and stuff like that. That's clearly they're not doing it right. I think that's not something we even need to spend any time on.
Well, it should be spent, because if you're making the statement that is it ethical to ruin the environment, I'm like, whoa. I'll keep on going back to say I really don't believe that animals are actually for periods of time on the land doing what scientifically is known, what the animals will do, the way that they can fertilize, the way that the grazing is beneficial, that is called animal fertilizers, animal input. And then there is crops that are growing that are not these frickin' GMO'd sterile plants. Farmers should have their seeds back so that they can become more prosperous, take away money from this Monsanto. Have the heirloom crops, allow the farmers to have the power back. Then these crops will be put on the area where the animals, the ruminant animals were. The ruminant animals are not taking away from the crops. We are replenishing grasslands. They are drinking mostly water. Now, is that a pipe dream? No, but that should be the discussion of, wow, I think that yes, if we would do that as a vegan from the side, well, yeah, at least acknowledge that would be a lot more destructive. And it does make sense that if they're actually eating drinking the rainwater that is free as well. And that's what happens mostly when you had those ranchers, just letting those things, the ranchers are the ones that were independent, putting out high quality foods that are getting squashed. There's a big attack on as not only the animal thing. And I'm telling you, if you look into it, again, I might be wrong, but it's worth looking into. Now, these meat associations have turned, in my opinion, they will turn more and more against animal protein. They want to stop and limit animal protein because it's more lucrative to go into the business. The animal packers are not going to allow another industry that is creating plant protein and lose out. They want the monopoly. They want it to be able to produce a certain amount of the protein coming from livestock, and they want that monopoly on plant-based protein products. I think that those corporations are the ones to watch out. So I think that
why wouldn't they just do both at the same time?
Well, isn't that what I said? I said that the farmer paradigm should be changed, where the farmer's actually doing both crop and livestock and doing a rotation, so that it's not like farmers that
You don't
only
think
own.
that's happening?
No, it's not happening.
You don't think there's farmers that have cows and fields of corn?
Not as a large scale paradigm to fix both plant agriculture as well. There are some people that
So why aren't they doing this? If this is such a financially efficient way of doing things, why aren't they doing it?
Well, I'm sure
Like if you're not having farm water and buying all this food, why is it not being done?
Well, I'm sure if you look at the topics that you guys talk about, that there's widespread corruption on all levels, from pharmaceutical to corporations and stuff like that. So I think it's quite plausible that there's financial reasons for it, and that
so the pharmaceutical companies are making the farmers grow in an inefficient way financially. What for?
Well, if they take away, first of all, if they're squishing the plant agriculturalists, not the big corporations. So you have the hardworking farmers growing soy, corn, whatever crops that they have, okay, getting their nuts squeezed by the people that are going to collect that amount. You should see how they corrupt it. They'll say, look, we're subsidizing. If you don't buy this new equipment, we're not buying your product. They're constantly keeping the plant agriculture farmers by the nuts. Eventually, those that were more like independent farmers that are plant, they get squished out. They keep on putting these restrictions.
Yeah, look what happened to India.
Then they will be able to centralize larger and larger corporations that are taking over more and more of the food supply for globally. This is like kind of the globalization aspect. They will produce and put more efforts into the alternative plant protein. And I know you're not taking the bug issue that seriously. Let's wait and see. I guarantee you that will be pushed very heavily. And these corporations will have control of both. They'll produce, they'll allow as much meat as they want.
Well, why would they stop? Why would they stop their most lucrative thing for something else? If they're interested in profit, why wouldn't they just do both?
I don't think that
you're saying they're going to eliminate meat protein when they start doing vegetable protein. In my opinion,
they're going to severely eliminate animal, sure, but they're going to do the same thing to agriculture. Wait and see. I could be completely wrong, and these are major assumptions, but I am concerned about where it's going to verge. Is that larger and larger corporations are going to have control over this food supply? Okay, it's going to squish out not only smaller local animal farmers that are independent, where the farms run in the families. This applies to plant agriculture, because we see this currently in Canada, in the Netherlands, that they are effing over the plant agriculture with the limitation on fertilizer, all for the climate agendas. This, I guarantee you that you will have a protein industry that incorporates whatever amount they want to provide on the supply chain, but they will focus, because it is true, it's more expensive to create beef. They will just go with the already subsidized wheat, grain, soy, produce the meat alternatives, feed that to the population, because and restrict the meat. It'll still be available, but economically, they've taken away the choice from the people. It's no longer vegans that feel ethically, their conscience, like you said, you always felt that way. Now people have the freedom, the choice to exercise their beliefs and their worldview and adopt the vegan diet. But at the same time, other people have a choice to eat a crap diet if they want, or to say, no, I think that it's a human right to incorporate animal food, and that if there's any changes, it should be a complete overhaul. I think that vegans and meat eaters, there's a lot also that we have in common, and I think that we on both sides may be getting effed over by the globalization that's happening under our nose. I think that's a major concern. I wouldn't be speaking out about veganism if I wasn't actually phobic about possible huge policy changes that are done on a global scale, all under the climate emergency, and that's taking away choice from people. And I'm concerned about that.
Got it.
Oh, you know what? If you'd like to continue talking, I just saw call Michelle, my wife, emergency. Do you mind just, I'll put you
Yeah.
as a person if you want to talk a little bit. It's up to you, man.
Okay.
Here, I'll put the solo layout. I just have to make a call. Okay. Bring up whatever.
Okay, go ahead. I'm not really sure.
Well, what about the whole like crop deaths? You know, maybe talk about like okay.
Well, that's what I think that's what we're going to end up debating. So that's probably the one thing I shouldn't talk about.
For JD.
Did you say he's coming on?
He was supposed to come on.
Because we definitely, if we're doing this Sunday, we definitely need to agree on a premise ASAP.
Oh, yeah, well, I mean, if you guys would like to do that online, if he ever pops up, or more in private, but definitely.
No, I mean, usually, I would love to do it right, on this stream and just get it over with. Huh?
That's kind of, yeah, if you want to like, do it privately. I just got to talk. Yeah, what's up? What's up? Where? Downtown? Okay, sorry. Okay, sorry. You know what?
You're in trouble, man. You're getting yelled at.
Yeah, okay, I'm calling right now. Sorry, I might start a stream shortly after, another one. Maybe JD will pop up. You're free to join. I brought my mom to the hospital yesterday.
Okay, no problem, man. Go ahead, do what you need to do.
They're actually
tag me if you let me know if you guys are going to stream together, because we need to hash out the premise.
Okay, so I might pop up a live stream shortly, and you're welcome to come on. Maybe JD will be there. Maybe you guys can talk about other things besides the debate or not. That's kind of none of my business. Dude, it was very nice talking to you.
Man.
I appreciate the dynamic. It was comfortable. I hope that the debate runs along the same lines. Nice to meet you, dude. Hopefully we can maybe hook up on things other than veganism. I'm sure that there's other cultural or societal things that we could like leave our differences alone, and I think that we could meet on certain things. I'll be back. Okay. All right, guys. I'm out of here.